I mean, I don't, like, sometimes people not gonna like your reaction. Whoop-de-doo. That don't mean that it wasn't an accurate reaction. You know what I'm saying? I hope that none of that happened. I ain't, you know what I'm saying? But it's done. What's done is done. And shit, we can just leave it at that. That's just how I kick it.
Do you feel like people?
The only song that almost didn't make that album was Mini Man.
Whoa!
And it was because of the tempo.
Broke my heart.
It was slower than the other records I wanted to keep everybody up. And then Dre was like, nah, that gotta go. You gotta keep that one. And then we put it, and then that was the end of it.
What started as a rap challenge has now turned into something far bigger than music. Because in 2026, the tension between 50 Cent and T.I. stopped looking like a normal hip-hop feud and started feeling like a full-scale war over image, family, and public control. At first, it looked like the kind of situation fans had seen before: a public challenge, a few online jabs, a couple of captions, a few shots taken in interviews. But that version of the story didn't last long, because once 50 shifted the entire conversation away from music, once Tiny got pulled into it, and once King Harris decided to jump in publicly, the whole thing started moving in a much darker direction. This stopped being simple, this stopped being clean, and this definitely stopped being just about who had the better catalog. Now the question was bigger. Who was really winning the narrative? Who looked stronger under pressure? And who was about to make the next move that changed everything all over again? Because the more this feud unfolded, the clearer it became that these two men were not fighting on the same battlefield anymore. T.I. was treating it like a rap conflict. 50 was treating it like a media opportunity. And once those two approaches collided, it turned into a story the internet couldn't stop watching. And the wildest part? All of this goes back to a battle that never even happened.
Might want to go on the lam and go to one of these foreign countries after his latest antics. He posted paperwork that accused 50 Cent snitching on Jimmy Henchman and Lodi Mac murder. King also dropped a video to his song where he's quote-unquote smoking on 50 Cent dead mom.
Ooh.
While wearing a shirt with her face on it.
Oh, yeah, he gotta go.
To really understand why this got so ugly, you have to go back to where the tension was reignited. During the pandemic, Versus became one of the biggest cultural events in music. Fans were locked in every night watching legends sit across from each other, playing hit after hit, and arguing over whose catalog was stronger. It was one of the few things that made the music world feel alive in a strange time. And in that environment, T.I. made it clear that one matchup he wanted was 50 Cent. This wasn't presented like a random fantasy booking. Over time, T.I. spoke like it was a real possibility, something that had already been discussed before, something that made sense in his mind because both men represented major eras of rap and carried big personalities, big records, and big egos. From T.I.'s point of view, this was unfinished business. It was a challenge worth making public. It was a statement. And more than that, it was a test. Because for T.I., this wasn't just about hits. It was also about pride, about legacy, about how he saw himself in relation to another giant name from his era. Years passed, the battle never happened, and the noise around it cooled off. But in 2026, T.I. brought it back into the spotlight again and made it clear that he still wanted that smoke. The way he framed it made it sound like there had been real discussion behind closed doors, like 50 knew this wasn't coming out of nowhere, like the issue had already been understood privately before it was mentioned publicly. And that is what made what happened next so important. Because if T.I. believed this was a serious conversation, then 50's public response was more than a rejection. It was a humiliation.
50 Cent music ain't terrible. It ain't bad. He got some great music. But the thing is, he can't compete.
Right.
This ain't the way you can compete because it's like you're gonna have to drop 3 dishes to even catch up. And you gotta drop them in 3 different...
This is where the story really starts to change. Because 50 did not respond like a man preparing for a rap showdown. He didn't respond like somebody interested in sitting across from T.I. and letting the music speak. He didn't even really respond like somebody who wanted to have a serious argument about who had the better catalog. He responded like 50 Cent. And that distinction matters. Because one thing 50 has done for years is refuse to fight on other people's terms. If he feels like somebody is trying to drag him into a lane that doesn't benefit him, he usually flips the board. He changes the tone, changes the rules, changes the conversation, and forces the other person to respond inside his world instead of theirs. That's exactly what happened here. Instead of staying in the music lane, 50 took the moment and redirected all the attention towards something more damaging, something more personal, something that would hit harder than a simple yes or no to a versus battle ever could. And once he did that, the real feud began. Because T.I. wasn't just being ignored, he was being reframed. And there's a big difference between those two things. Ignored means the issue dies. Reframed means the issue gets twisted into something else, something messier, something harder to recover from. That was the genius and the cruelty of 50's approach. He didn't just reject the challenge, he made the challenge irrelevant.
Battle, but they ain't win the war.
The move that changed everything was the Crimestoppers clip. The moment 50 resurfaced that old footage connected to T.I., the entire energy of the feud shifted. What had looked like a conversation about music instantly became a conversation about credibility, street image, and one of the most sensitive accusations you can make in hip-hop. That was not a light move. That was not accidental. And that definitely wasn't a joke, even if it was delivered with trolling energy. In rap culture, once somebody starts pushing a narrative about your character instead of your music, they're no longer trying to outshine you. They're trying to stain you. And that kind of attack is much harder to wash off because it follows you differently. People stop asking who has the better records and start asking who they believe. That is why this moment hit so hard. Because from T.I.'s side, this was supposed to be a competitive conversation, but from 50's side, it was now a war over public image. And the more T.I. answered, the more he had to fight against a frame he didn't create. That's what made the feud feel so one-sided in a strange way. Not because T.I. had nothing to say, but because the subject itself kept changing. Every time T.I. tried to bring it back to music, the conflict got dragged back towards something darker, something more personal, and something more explosive online. At that point, respect was already starting to disappear. And once respect leaves a situation like this, escalation becomes almost automatic.
Yeah, man, we talk about this shit, man. This shit just come out of nowhere. Nigga, we were moving around in LA, man, selling some TV shows and shit while we were around each other, man, you know what I mean? I said, shit, what you think about this? He was like, shit, you wanna do that shit? I said, yeah. He was like, all right, cool, so shit. And I told him, I said, well, I'm gonna jump out there first, and then you just gonna jump out.
For T.I., this clearly wasn't just frustrating, it looked personal. Because in his mind, this was bigger than one old clip. It was about his name being publicly toyed with in a way that could damage how people see him. And for an artist like T.I., whose entire brand has always been built around confidence, authority, and status, that kind of attack was always going to trigger a bigger response. This was no longer about whether T.I. wanted to battle. That question was dead now. The new question was whether T.I. was going to let 50 control the perception of the entire exchange. And T.I. made it clear he wasn't willing to do that. But even then, it still could have remained something contained between two men with history, two public figures taking shots, two rappers trying to outposition each other in the eyes of fans. That possibility ended the moment family got involved. Because once family enters a rap feud, logic usually leaves the room.
Leave me. When 50 released this document, y'all, listen, he worse than Epstein. Listen, T.I., nope. There's a victim that says T.I. tried to put his toe in his foot in a... That's why I read it.
When Tiny got dragged into the conflict, everything changed. That was the line where the feud stopped being just about ego and started becoming about protection. In hip-hop, there's a huge difference between disrespecting a man directly and dragging his wife or children into the public spectacle. And once that happens, the tone gets uglier fast because the emotional stakes go up immediately. And that's exactly what happened here. From the outside, it might have looked like more trolling, another post, another jab, another headline. But inside the Harris family, that likely felt very different, because now the conflict wasn't simply about whether T.I. had been embarrassed publicly. Now it was about whether the people closest to him were being targeted too. And when that happens, the pressure on the men around that family changes completely. That is why King Harris's entry into the story felt so inevitable once Tiny became part of it. At that point, he wasn't stepping into a rap debate. He was stepping into what he saw as a defense of his mother. And once he did that, the whole feud changed age, energy, and speed all at once.
Mm-hmm.
You recognize who that is?
Yeah, that's Phil.
Okay.
Oh, that's his body.
In 34A.
Yeah, that's the entry wound.
King Harris didn't enter this story with the calm energy of somebody trying to calculate the perfect move. He came in with emotion. And in some ways, that made the entire situation more volatile than anything 50 and T.I. had done up to that point. Because once a younger family member jumps into a highly public feud, the structure changes. The conflict becomes less predictable, less strategic, less controlled. Now emotions are moving faster than image management. King made it clear that he wasn't going to sit back while his mother was dragged online. That alone would have been enough to intensify the situation. But it didn't stop there. His words, his visuals, and the way he chose to position himself all told the public the same thing. He was fully willing to take this somewhere much uglier if he felt pushed far enough. That is what made people really lock in. Because suddenly this wasn't just 50 trolling a rapper. It wasn't just T.I. trying to stand on his name. It was now a son publicly signaling that he was ready to escalate in defense of family. And that created a completely different kind of tension. The audience started watching for more than just bars. Now they were watching body language, watching reactions, watching who looked rattled, watching who might cross a line next. At that point, the feud was no longer stable. It was moving in waves, and every wave was getting rougher.
And goddamn, they gave that motherfucker the Ludacris for, I think it was Battle of the Sexes or one of his albums. And don't get me wrong, Ludacris is a phenomenon.
Then came the moment that changed the entire emotional center of the story. The shirt. When King Harris used imagery linked to 50 Cent's late mother, the feud crossed a line that even people who love messy rap drama had trouble defending. That one visual did more than offend people. It changed the moral balance of the argument. Because before that moment, people could still frame the story as ugly but familiar. A rap beef, a family response, online disrespect meeting online disrespect. But once a deceased parent became part of the imagery, the temperature changed instantly. This wasn't just another viral post. This became the moment people pointed to and said, okay, now this has gone too far. And what made that moment even more important was T.I.'s reaction afterward. Because T.I. didn't just blindly celebrate everything his sons did. He later made it clear that while he understood the instinct to defend their mother, the shirt hit different. That was the point where he felt the line had been crossed. That matters because it shows even he understood how dangerous the optics had become. When the person at the center of the feud admits a move on his own side went too far, it tells the audience something important. It tells them this wasn't just heat-of-the-moment chaos. It was a genuine breaking point. And once you reach a breaking point in a public feud, the next move usually gets bigger, not calmer, bigger.
Recently saw, you talk about Damani being, edgy, King. We saw their responses with the whole 50 Cent situation. And I heard T.I. say how he didn't like to see them do that. How did you feel when you saw Damani and King hopping online to defend you with 50 Cent?
It was a, proud moment that they wanted to speak up for their mom. But, and I felt like the songs was really good, especially Damani when he went in with the Miss Jackson. I was like, dang, where did this come from? That's amazing. So, but King, my son, and he took it very personal. And he just was like going so far, and I kept calling King, take this down right now. He was like, nah, I can't, mama. And I'm like, what? And I just couldn't get him to listen to me. Like, he's like, nah. I mean, I was like, listen, this child ain't had nothing to do with nothing. He said, and you didn't have nothing to do with nothing. So I was like, okay.
And feeling like that, do you feel like 50 Cent went too far, or is it like?
I mean, I feel like you should have kept the beef with the man you was dealing with. You know what I'm saying? Why is you bringing his woman into it? Because you are dealing with a man. You a man. You dealing with the man. Deal with the man. You ain't got nothing to do with me. I ain't got nothing to do with this. Like, who goes after the woman?
As the situation kept spiraling, the Harris side began answering in the clearest way they could, through music. T.I. dropped records. King dropped records. Domani entered the mix too. And together, it started to feel less like random replies and more like a full campaign of response. That mattered because musically, the Harris side was showing up. They were active, they were loud, they were direct. They were making sure nobody could say 50 had thrown shots without seeing pushback. But this is also where the contrast between both sides became impossible to ignore. Because while T.I. and his family were fighting in the rap lane, 50 still wasn't really meeting them there. Not in the traditional sense, not with the kind of direct, full-scale musical war fans were expecting. Instead, he kept leaning into another kind of power. Memes, captions, half-posts, deleted posts, hints, silence, then another provocation. That is what made his strategy so uncomfortable. He never seemed rushed. He never seemed overwhelmed. He never seemed forced into the lane the other side wanted. And that gave him a very different kind of control. Because if one side is pouring everything into tracks and explanations, while the other side is just nudging the story in whatever direction they want, the person doing less can sometimes end up controlling more. That is exactly what this started to look like.
You understand that? You understand that? Caring about who, how big you, who you, how tough you, who you shot, what you done, where you been to jail. Caring about none of that, man. Bring your ass out. Do it to me. You ain't did shit till you do it.
Then the feud moved into even more dangerous territory when paperwork entered the conversation. Once documents started getting shared and framed as proof against 50, the internet did what it always does in moments like this. It turned into a courtroom without rules. People started screenshotting, reposting, arguing, and trying to decode everything in real time. At that point, it almost didn't matter what was fully verified and what wasn't. The public discussion had already escaped control. And that is one of the most important parts of this whole feud. Because once a story moves faster than facts, the winner isn't always the person who's right. It's the person who understands how to survive the chaos best. King's move made one thing obvious. The younger side of the Harris family was not interested in restraint. They were interested in pressure. But pressure cuts both ways. Because every time the Harris side escalated publicly, it also created more room for 50 to justify doing something bigger, colder, and more strategic in return. And that's exactly where the story headed next.
Song that was a diss. He was teasing it with the last song, I think Made Man was the name of it. He was teasing with that.
And that's what makes this feud so much more layered than a normal rap story. T.I. was still moving like a rapper, trying to keep control through music, visibility, and direct communication. He kept showing up, he kept talking, he kept making sure his side didn't disappear. 50 moved differently. He moved like someone who understands that in 2026, attention is currency, narrative is power, and unpredictability can be more effective than volume. That contrast is the whole story. One man is fighting with presence, the other is fighting with timing. One is trying to answer directly, the other is trying to make direct answers feel irrelevant. And when you really break it down, that's why the feud stayed so compelling. Because it wasn't just about who was louder, it was about whose method would work better in the modern media environment.
I'm here to protect what's ours, what we built. Man, this is, man, I die in the street about this man. This dead ears to me. This no more game. I'm not playing.
Do you hit King when you...
So where does all of this leave the story now? In a place that feels unfinished, unstable, and wide open. T.I. has made it clear he sees himself as defending family and protecting his legacy, while still keeping his music alive. King Harris made sure the next generation of that family got dragged directly into the conflict, whether that was wise or not. And 50 made it painfully clear that if he really wants to escalate, he doesn't need to do it through a normal diss track. That's what makes this so dangerous. Because once a feud leaves the booth and enters the media machine, the consequences can last a lot longer than a verse. A song fades, a headline fades, but a bigger media move can keep breathing life into a story long after people think it should be over. And that means the next move matters even more than the last one did. One post could change the tone again. One interview could reopen everything. One clip could go viral and reset the conversation all over again. That is why people still can't look away, because what started as a challenge became a humiliation. That humiliation became a feud. That feud became a family conflict. That family conflict became a public war. And that war may still be building towards something even bigger.
The neighborhood ain't accepting that. You bitch ass nigga, we heard you's a rat.
That's a fact.
You know what I'm saying? Like that.
That's a fact.
They say these things when they want to try. Look, even for me personally, my character, they would try to attack my character. They'll say he a rat or he just snap.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is ask him who I told him.
And the truth is, this still may not be the end. Because if 50 really makes a bigger move, the whole situation changes overnight. And if T.I. responds in a way nobody expects, then this feud enters a completely new chapter. Either way, this story is still unfolding, and whatever happens next, it won't be small.